For 7 seasons, MacGyver kept millions of viewers glued to their screens around the world. One man, a Swiss Army knife, a roll of duct tape, and not a single gunshot. But what happened to the cast after the cameras stopped rolling turned out to be far more unpredictable than anything the show ever dreamed up. Did you know that one of the series' key actors actually lost his sight during production? And the writers wrote it into the story. Did you know that another cast member stepped in for the lead singer of a legendary band at Live Aid in front of an audience of 2 billion people? And did you know that the man who played MacGyver himself nearly became a professional hockey player until he broke both arms on the ice in 2 separate accidents? Welcome to 2026. Here's where the stars of MacGyver ended up, more than 3 decades later. Number 1, Dana Elcar as Pete Thornton. Pete Thornton, director of the Phoenix Foundation, MacGyver's boss and closest friend, became one of the most beloved figures in the series. He was always the one pulling Mac out of trouble, even if field work wasn't exactly his strong suit. Dana Elcar was 57 years old when he first appeared as Pete in the 11th episode of Season 1. Interestingly, he'd already played a completely different character in the pilot, Agent Andy Coulson. It was Richard Dean Anderson himself who pushed the producers to bring Elcar back as a series regular. By all accounts, Anderson fought hard for it, convinced he'd found a powerful scene partner. He was right. Dana Elcar appeared in nearly every episode across all 7 seasons. By that point, he already had 3 decades of credits behind him: The Sting, Beretta, The A-Team, The Twilight Zone, and dozens more. He started on Broadway in 1951 and worked his way from street mime in New York City to one of Hollywood's most respected character actors. But something extraordinary and heartbreaking happened during the run of the show. In 1991, Elcar was diagnosed with glaucoma and began losing his vision rapidly. Rather than write him out, the producers did something remarkable. They incorporated his real condition into the script. Pete Thornton started going blind on screen. It was honest, raw, and genuinely moving. Elcar never stopped working. In a 1991 speech before the National Federation of the Blind, he delivered what became his personal motto: "Losing your sight doesn't mean you've forgotten how to act." Despite his progressive blindness, he continued taking roles, Law and Order, ER, and others, through the late 1990s. He was married 3 times and is survived by a son and 3 daughters. Dana Elcar passed away on June 6, 2005, at the age of 77 from complications of pneumonia at a hospital in Ventura, California. In a poignant coincidence, the DVD release of MacGyver, Season 2 hit shelves in the US on that very same day, as if he were leaving one last gift behind. His story is ultimately about something more powerful than vision: sheer force of spirit. Number 2, John Anderson as Harry Jackson. Harry Jackson, MacGyver's grandfather, the only real family the hero ever had. Tough, quiet, loving. The man who always called Mac simply Bud. John Anderson was 62 years old when he first appeared in the role in the 10th episode of Season 1, Target MacGyver. His presence gave the show a warmth and humanity it couldn't have found any other way. By that point, Anderson had built one of the most staggering careers in American television. More than 500 TV credits to his name. His distinctive look, tall, lean, sharp-featured, led to him being cast as Abraham Lincoln not once, but 3 times. He appeared in Hitchcock's Psycho, 1960, as the car dealer who sells Marion Crane her getaway vehicle. Westerns were a second home: The Gunfighter, Rawhide, Gunsmoke, The Big Valley. His resume also included Rich Man, Poor Man, Dallas, and Star Trek: The Next Generation. Why Harry Jackson died on screen. Of a heart attack in the season, 5-episode Passages. It was one of the most emotional scenes in the entire run of the show, and life, with painful precision, echoed that storyline. On August 7, 1992, just months after MacGyver aired its final episode, John Anderson died of a heart attack at his home in Sherman Oaks, California. He was 69. His ashes were scattered over the ocean, per his wishes as a member of the Neptune Society. He left behind 2 children, 7 grandchildren, and 2 great-grandchildren. When he left the series as MacGyver's grandfather, he took a piece of every viewer's heart with him. Number 3, Bruce McGill as Jack Dalton. Jack Dalton, adventurer, pilot, con man, and MacGyver's oldest friend. Every time he showed up, he dragged Mac into some new disaster. And every single time, he did it with the biggest grin imaginable. Bruce McGill was 35 years old when he first played Dalton in 1986, and he reprised the role across 19 episodes throughout the series. Audiences loved him immediately, particularly that telltale eye twitch that gave Jack away whenever he was lying, which MacGyver always clocked before anyone else. McGill had already made his mark on Hollywood well before MacGyver. His breakout came in 1978 with the legendary comedy National Lampoon's Animal House, where he played D-Day, one of the most memorable members of the Delta fraternity. That film opened the door. After MacGyver, McGill's career only gained momentum. He became a go-to actor for director Michael Mann, appearing in The Insider, 1999, Ollie, 2001, and Collateral, 2004. In Spielberg's Lincoln, 2012, he played Secretary of War Edwin Stanton. On the TV side, he found a long-running home as Detective Vince Corsack in Rizzoli and Isles, 2010 to 2016, staying with the show for all 6 seasons. More recently, he appeared in Amazon's hit series Reacher. In 2026, Bruce McGill is 75 years old. He remains active and in demand, one of the most reliably excellent character actors working in Hollywood today. Jack Dalton always said he had a plan. Turns out McGill did too, and it worked. Number 4, Elyssa Davalos as Nikki Carpenter. Nikki Carpenter, MacGyver's love interest in season 3, was sharp, independent, and had absolutely no interest in being set decoration. Quick-witted, fearless, and unpredictable. Elyssa Davalos was 28 years old when she took on the role in 1987. She actually appeared first as a different character, Lisa Kohler, in the 2-part episode Lost Love, before returning as Nikki Carpenter and becoming a recurring presence on the show. Davalos came from genuine Hollywood royalty. Her father was Richard Davalos, the actor who appeared opposite James Dean in East of Eden, 1955. She grew up surrounded by the craft and came to acting completely naturally, but the Nikki Carpenter storyline ended abruptly. The producers were trying to recreate the electric dynamic of the hit series Moonlighting, and viewers pushed back hard. Hundreds of letters poured in. Richard Dean Anderson later described them as devastating. The character was written out mid-season. Reportedly, the Vancouver shoot also made it difficult for Davalos to be close to her young daughter, who was living in Los Angeles. After MacGyver, she continued working. Diagnosis, Murder, Life Goes On, and several other projects. Her final screen credit was the 2013 film Beverly Hills Chihuahua 3. Today she lives well away from the spotlight. But the more fascinating chapter of this story belongs to her daughter, Alexa Davalos, born in Paris in 1982, raised in France and Italy, and now one of the most compelling actresses of her generation, known for The Chronicles of Riddick, The Man in the High Castle, and more. In 2026, Elyssa Davalos is 66 years old. She passed the Hollywood torch to her daughter, and her daughter is carrying it with distinction. Number 5, Teri Hatcher as Penny Parker. Penny Parker was one of MacGyver's most beloved recurring characters. Sweet, a little scattered, but with a heart of gold. An aspiring actress who had a gift for landing in trouble, and an equal gift for landing in MacGyver's path. Teri Hatcher was just 21 years old when she first played Penny in 1986, in the episode Every Time She Smiles. She returned for 5 more episodes after that. Before MacGyver, Hatcher had been an NFL cheerleader for the San Francisco 49ers in 1984, and had appeared on The Love Boat as a showgirl mermaid. Those were the early steps. MacGyver was the next one. What happened after genuinely surprised people? Hatcher became one of the most recognizable actresses of her era. In 1993, she was cast as Lois Lane in Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman, and the world fell in love with her all over again. In 1997, she played a Bond girl in Tomorrow Never Dies, and then came the role that defined a decade, Susan Mayer in Desperate Housewives, 2004 to 2012, which earned her a Golden Globe and 3 Screen Actors Guild Awards. But Hatcher's life wasn't just a highlight reel of career wins. In 2002, she publicly disclosed that she had been sexually abused by an uncle during childhood, an act of enormous courage. She was married twice, both marriages ending in divorce, and raised her daughter Emerson, born in 1997, largely on her own. In 2026, Teri Hatcher is 61 years old. She continues to work, appearing in Hallmark projects, voicing a character in the Apple TV Plus animated series Wondlaw, and preparing for a stage production of Fault in Chicago. Penny Parker was a wide-eyed dreamer. Teri Hatcher is a survivor. And that's a far more interesting story. Number 6, Michael Desbar as Murdoch was arguably the greatest TV villain of the 1980s. An international assassin and master of disguise who died in every episode and came back every time. 9 showdowns with MacGyver, 9 apparent deaths, 9 returns, like a nightmare you can't shake. Michael Desbar was 39 years old when he first brought the character to life in 1987. But who exactly is Michael Desbar? The answer is genuinely astonishing. He is the 26th Marquis de Bar, a British aristocrat, a real European marquess, born in Hove, England in 1948. He is also a rock musician, an actor, a radio host, and a legend across multiple worlds simultaneously. His music career deserves its own documentary. In 1983, he wrote Obsession, which became a #1 hit in 27 countries for the group Animotion. In 1985, he stepped in for Robert Palmer in Power Station, the Duran Duran offshoot, and performed with them at Live Aid in front of an audience of 2 billion people. 2 billion. That's not a typo. His rock biography also includes Silverhead, Detective, and Checkered Past, the last of which featured Steve Jones of the Sex Pistols and members of Blondie. He was married to legendary rock memoirist Pamela Des Barres from 1977 to 1991. They have a son, Nicholas. As an actor, he has logged more than 150 hours of American television: Melrose Place, Seinfeld, Frasier, NCIS, Bones. In 2018 and 2019, he returned to the MacGyver franchise, the reboot, playing Nicholas Hellman, the mentor figure behind a new Murdoch. In 2026, Michael Desbar is 78 years old. He hosts a daily show on Sirius XM Radio, Channel 21, Little Steven's Underground Garage. With a weekly listenership of more than 6 million, Murdoch never really died. Neither has Michael Desbar. Number 7, Cuba Gooding Jr. in a guest role as a teenager. Few people know that Cuba Gooding Jr. made one of his earliest screen appearances on MacGyver. Long before he became a Hollywood star, he showed up in a small role as a teenager from a rough neighborhood in one episode. Gooding was around 18 years old when he appeared in 1986. The arc of his career after that brief moment was extraordinary. In 1991, he appeared in John Singleton's landmark Boys and the Hood. In 1992, he had a role in Spike Lee's Malcolm X. But it wasn't an action film that made him a household name. It was one unforgettable, ear-splitting line in Jerry Maguire, 1996. Show Me the Money. He won the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor for that performance. What Lies Beneath, Snow Dogs, X-Men, Radio, for which he received a Golden Globe nomination. His career seemed destined to keep climbing. Then, in 2019, serious legal trouble arrived. Multiple women came forward with accusations of sexual misconduct. The fallout was significant. In 2022, Gooding pleaded guilty to 1 count of forcible touching and was sentenced to 3 years of probation. The damage to his reputation was severe. In 2026, Cuba Gooding Jr. is 58 years old. He is working to rebuild both his career and his public standing after a deeply painful and very public crisis. That small moment on MacGyver was just the beginning of both the extraordinary and the difficult. Number 8, Don S. Davis as stunt double, and General Don S. Davis is a fascinating figure, one most MacGyver viewers never quite registered. For several seasons, he served as Dana Elcar's stunt double, stepping in for Elcar as Pete Thornton, when the progression of his glaucoma made certain scenes difficult to film. But that's only the opening chapter. Don S. Davis is the man who went on to play General George Hammond in Stargate SG-1, the series that brought Richard Dean Anderson back to television immediately after MacGyver. In other words, the man who doubled MacGyver's boss later became the commanding officer of Jack O'Neill in the Stargate universe. Coincidence, or something like fate? Davis was born in 1942. Beyond acting, he was a professional painter and a theater professor at the University of British Columbia. His role as General Hammond in Stargate SG-1 ran from 1997 to 2007 and stands as the defining achievement of his career. Sadly, on June 29, 2008, Don S. Davis passed away from a heart attack at the age of 65. His death was a heavy blow to the entire Stargate family. Richard Dean Anderson paid tribute to him with words of genuine warmth. Davis began as a shadow in MacGyver and ended as one of the most beloved figures in science fiction television. Number 9. Vernon Wells as villain Carl Stryker. Vernon Wells is one of those actors MacGyver viewers remember with a chill. His villain, Carl Stryker, appeared across several episodes as a figure of pure, implacable menace. Wells was around 35 years old when he took on the role in the mid-1980s. International audiences, though, already knew him from somewhere far more intense. In 1981, he played Wes, a ferocious, almost feral biker, in George Miller's post-apocalyptic masterpiece Mad Max 2, The Road Warrior. That role instantly made him one of the most memorable screen villains of the era. He followed it with Bennett, another magnetic, chilling antagonist, in Commando, 1985, with Arnold Schwarzenegger. "Bennett! I need Bennett!" A line that still lands today. After MacGyver, the Australian actor kept a steady presence in both film and television. Dark Tide, Supernatural, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and many more. He became a reliable go-to whenever a production needed someone genuinely dangerous on screen. In 2026, Vernon Wells is 75 years old. He lives in Australia and makes occasional appearances at fan conventions, where he's received with enormous enthusiasm. Few actors can claim such a collection of iconic villain roles across such wildly different genres. Number 10. Rita Moreno as Marita Souza. Rita Moreno is a legend of such magnitude that even a recurring appearance on MacGyver could feel like an event. She was not simply another guest actress. Every time she appeared on screen, she brought with her decades of history, stage presence, and an energy that was impossible to ignore. In the series, she appeared in several episodes in the late 1980s, playing Marita Souza, a Latina character full of life, warmth, and personality. Marita was not a weightless supporting figure. She had personality, strength, humor, and that special spark Rita Moreno always knew how to bring to her characters. During those appearances, Moreno was around 57 years old, but her presence still carried the intensity of someone who commanded the camera with complete naturalness. But to understand the importance of her appearance on MacGyver, you have to remember who Rita Moreno is. We are not talking only about a recognized actress. We are talking about one of the few artists in history to have achieved the EGOT. An Oscar, an Emmy, a Grammy, and a Tony. That distinction belongs to a very small group of performers in the entire history of film, television, music, and theater. Her Oscar came in 1962 for her role as Anita in West Side Story, directed by Robert Wise and Jerome Robbins. With that award, Rita Moreno became the first Latina actress to win a competitive Oscar, a historic moment not only for her career, but also for Latina representation in Hollywood. And the most impressive thing is that MacGyver was only a small stop in an enormous career. After the series, Moreno never stopped working. She appeared in Oz, where she played Sister Peter Marie Raimondo. She appeared in Jane the Virgin, she was part of Netflix's new version of One Day at a Time, and she continued appearing in projects across different generations, showing an uncommon ability to adapt. In 2021, she returned to the world of West Side Story in the new version directed by Steven Spielberg, this time in a completely different role, Valentina. She was 89 years old, and even then her presence felt essential once again. It was not simply a nostalgic wink, it was a kind of bridge between two eras, the classic Hollywood she helped change, and a new generation still discovering her legacy. In 2026, Rita Moreno is 94 years old. She remains a living legend, an artist whose career spans more than 8 decades, and who continues to receive recognition for her contribution to cinema and culture. That is why seeing her in MacGyver has a special value. The series had many memorable guests, but Rita Moreno belonged to another category. Her presence elevated every scene. Marita Souza could have been just another character inside an adventure story, but in Moreno's hands, she became someone with a life of her own. MacGyver was lucky to have her, and the audience, even if they did not always realize it at the time, was watching one of the great figures in entertainment history pass across the screen. Number 11, Allison Daniels as Stephanie Owens. MacGyver had many recurring supporting characters: scientists, diplomats, agents, temporary allies, and ordinary people who, in one way or another, needed help. But the series did not use them only as functional pieces inside a mission. Many of those characters helped build the world around MacGyver and showed that his stories did not depend only on action, but also on intelligence, trust, and collaboration. Stephanie Owens appeared in several episodes as a capable, calm, and independent character, someone MacGyver could trust completely. She was not presented as a decorative figure or as a passive presence in the plot. On the contrary, she had judgment, confidence, and a clear function within the story. Her presence fit one of the series' most consistent principles. Competent women were not the exception, but a natural part of that universe. That detail mattered. MacGyver often built its episodes around people with knowledge, courage, or a specific skill. The protagonist was resourceful, yes, but he rarely moved forward completely alone. Around him were people who thought, made decisions, took risks, and contributed something real to the story. Stephanie Owens belonged to that line of characters who, without always occupying the center of the scene, made the world of the series feel more alive and more believable. The actress who played her continued working in different television projects before stepping away from acting in the mid-1990s. Her career was not necessarily one of those trajectories marked by major headlines, but it is part of the quiet fabric that sustains the memory of many classic series. In television, not every performer leaves a mark from the foreground. Some do it from the margins, through brief appearances, recurring characters, and a presence that helps define the tone of an era. And that, too, is part of the history of MacGyver. The series is not remembered only for its improvised inventions, its dangerous scenes, or the central figure of Richard Dean Anderson. It is also remembered for the atmosphere it built around him: reliable allies, well-defined supporting characters, and women who did not need to be rescued all the time in order to matter within the story. Stories like those of Allison Daniels and Stephanie Owens remind us that the success of a great series does not rest only on its main stars. Behind the protagonist, the most remembered episodes, and the most iconic scenes, there are faces that complete the world, actors who bring naturalness, and characters who make the fiction breathe. Sometimes it is precisely those less visible pieces that hold the entire structure together. Number 12. Robin Mosley as Wilt Bozer. Wilt Bozer, MacGyver's neighbor at the marina, a mechanic and a buddy who appeared in the first 3 seasons. Always good-natured, always ready to lend a hand. Robin Mosley was around 32 years old when he first played the role in 1985. Canadian actor Robin Mosley built his career primarily in television, and MacGyver became a meaningful chapter in that story. It's worth noting that the character of Wilt Bozer actually survived into the 2016 reboot, reimagined as a young, gifted special effects and disguise expert, played by a different actor. Mosley himself went on to appear in The X-Files, notably playing 3 completely different characters across 3 separate episodes, which speaks to his range. He also appeared in Stargate SG-1, continuing a quiet tradition of cast crossovers between the 2 series. In 2026, Robin Mosley is around 73 years old. He has been married to production designer Helen Jarvis since 1995, and has long since settled into a quiet life away from the set. Wilt was always there when MacGyver needed him, and then slipped away gracefully. His actor did the same. Number 13. Richard Dean Anderson as MacGyver. This is where it all began. Angus MacGyver, agent of the Phoenix Foundation, an action hero without weapons, a man of endless resourcefulness, and one of the most recognizable figures on 1980s television. He did not carry a gun, He did not need gratuitous violence. All he needed was a Swiss Army knife, a roll of duct tape, some seemingly useless object, and a mind capable of turning any problem into a solution. Richard Dean Anderson was 35 years old when the series premiered on September 29, 1985. From that moment on, his life became forever linked to a character who did not quite resemble the usual heroes of the era. While other characters solved conflicts with gunfire, chases, and explosions, MacGyver did it with observation, patience, scientific knowledge, and creativity. Across 7 seasons, 139 episodes, and 2 television movies, Anderson was present in practically every corner of the series. He was the face, the rhythm, and the heart of MacGyver. The story of how he got the role seems written for a movie. He arrived at the audition with vision problems and asked if he could put on his glasses to read the script. That simple gesture, completely natural, without arrogance, and without any attempt to impress, caught the producer's attention. They did not see an actor trying to appear brilliant. They saw someone calm, direct, intelligent, and human. Exactly what they needed to build MacGyver. But by then, Anderson's life had already taken some rather extraordinary turns. Before becoming an actor, he had dreamed of a professional career in hockey. That was his first great goal. But at 16, he broke one arm, and barely 3 weeks later, after returning to the ice, he broke the other. The second injury was much more serious. He spent 3 months in the hospital and had metal pins placed in his elbow. His athletic dream ended before it could truly begin. And yet, that break did not stop him. After losing hockey, he searched for another kind of horizon. In one of those decisions that seem to define a person, he rode a bicycle about 5,600 miles from Minneapolis to Alaska. He completed the last 33 days completely alone. That image says a great deal about Richard Dean Anderson even before MacGyver existed. A young man capable of moving forward with very little, enduring exhaustion, and finding a way to keep going when the road seemed to close. After MacGyver, Anderson appeared in several television movies, but his second great chapter arrived in 1997 when he played Colonel Jack O'Neill in Stargate SG-1. And something very difficult happened. He managed to create another iconic character. For many actors, a role like MacGyver would have been an impossible shadow to overcome. For Anderson, it became the beginning of a second television life. O'Neill had a different tone, a different humor, a different energy, but he preserved something recognizable. That practical intelligence, that dry irony, and that humanity Anderson knew how to convey without effort. His work in Stargate SG-1 even received a very unusual recognition. In 2004, the United States Air Force honored him for the positive image the series presented of the service, and Richard Dean Anderson was named an honorary brigadier general. It was not just a symbolic award within the entertainment world. It was an official recognition of an actor whose performance had connected with a real institution. His personal life never exactly followed the conventional Hollywood mold. Anderson never married. From 1996, he was in a relationship with April Prose, with whom he had his daughter, Wiley Quinn, born in 1998. The couple separated years later, and Anderson made a decision that says a great deal about his priorities. He began stepping away from filming in order to be more present in his daughter's life. In an industry where many sacrifice family life to stay visible, he did the opposite. He chose to disappear a little so he could be where he felt he needed to be. In 2013, he made it clear that he was withdrawing more and more from acting precisely for that reason. He wanted to be close to Wiley. She was 15 years old. For an actor accustomed to long shooting days, conventions, travel, and constant projects, that decision was a kind of quiet act of consistency. The man who played a hero capable of solving any situation chose to solve the most important thing off-screen: being a father. Over time, Wiley grew up and also found her own path in the audiovisual world as a producer and director. Anderson has spoken on different occasions about his willingness to work with her, should the right opportunity ever arise. There is something very peaceful in that possible closing chapter. The former MacGyver, far from explosions and improvised laboratories, sharing a new creative stage with his daughter. In 2026, Richard Dean Anderson is 76 years old. He was born on January 23, 1950, in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Today he lives a much quieter life, connected to the sea, nature, and environmental causes. He has supported organizations such as the Sea Shepherd Conservation Society and the Waterkeeper Alliance, maintaining a real commitment to conservation and environmental protection. He also appears from time to time at fan conventions, but not with the attitude of someone who needs to return to the center of attention. Rather, he seems to show up out of gratitude, out of respect for the people who followed his work for decades. MacGyver gave him 7 years of absolute intensity. Years in which, as he himself once said, he did not have a single free minute. But Anderson always seemed to understand something his character also represented. It is not only about how much noise you make, but about what you build with what you have in front of you. And his legacy is rare, almost unique. The name MacGyver eventually entered the dictionary as a verb. To MacGyver means to create, repair, or solve something with whatever is available. Merriam-Webster added it to its online dictionary in 2022 after years of popular use. That does not happen to just any character. Not every television hero becomes a word. Not every actor leaves such a deep mark that his fictional surname ends up describing a way of thinking. Richard Dean Anderson did not simply play MacGyver. He gave him body, calm, humor, humanity, and credibility. He turned a television hero into a cultural idea. The idea that there can always be a solution, even when you have almost nothing. You only need to look more carefully, think differently, and not give up too soon. And there they are. The cast of MacGyver, then and now. Some left too soon. Some surpassed every expectation. Some chose quiet and peace. Each of them left a mark on a story that taught an entire generation. The most powerful tool you have is the one between your ears. If you watched MacGyver growing up, drop a comment below and tell us which episode stuck with you. If you learned something new today, hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. We're just getting started.